You did it again, didn't you? Someone called you, not to ask how you were doing, not to check in on the life you're quietly struggling through, but to unload, to pour everything heavy and exhausting and unresolved directly into you, like you're some kind of emotional recycling bin that never gets full. And you listened. You stayed on the phone longer than you wanted to. You offered words you had to dig for because you were already running low. You talked them through it. You calmed them down. You sent them off feeling lighter. And then you hung up the phone and sat in complete silence and felt absolutely hollowed out. Here's the thing that nobody ever says about people like you. The exhaustion you carry is not because you're weak. It's not because you're broken. It's because you have been doing the emotional labor of 10 people and calling it love. And somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that's what goodness looks like, that the more you give, the better person you are. That setting limits means you don't care enough, that protecting yourself is the same thing as abandoning the people you love. That belief right there is the thing that has been slowly, quietly, lovingly destroying you. Welcome. I'm so glad you found this because what we're going to talk about today is not about becoming cold or distant or turning into someone who doesn't feel things deeply. That's not possible for you, and honestly, it's not what you want anyway. What we're going to talk about is something harder and more necessary than that. We're going to talk about how to stay open, stay warm, stay fully yourself, and still protect the incredibly sensitive, incredibly precious inner world you carry around every single day. We're going to talk about how you stop being a candle that burns down to nothing for everyone else while sitting in the dark yourself. There's a concept in psychology called emotional contagion, and if you're an empath, you already live this truth, even if you've never heard the name for it. Emotional contagion is the phenomenon where you unconsciously absorb the feelings of the people around you. You walk into a room where two people had a fight an hour ago, and you feel it in the air. You sit next to someone who is anxious on an airplane, and your heart starts to race for no reason you can name. You watch a stranger cry in a coffee shop, and you have to look away or you'll cry too. This is not a flaw. Let me say that clearly because a lot of people in your life have made you feel like it is. Researchers have actually found that highly empathetic people show increased activation in the areas of the brain associated with pain and emotion when they observe others suffering. You are literally neurologically wired to feel what other people feel. You didn't choose this. You were built this way. And for a long time, you probably thought something was wrong with you for it. But here's what nobody told you. That same gift, that same exquisite sensitivity also makes you incredibly vulnerable to something that psychologists call compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is what happens when you care so deeply, so consistently, so without limits, that your nervous system eventually starts to break down under the weight of it. You become irritable when you used to be patient. You become numb when you used to feel everything. You start to dread the phone ringing. You feel guilty for needing space. You wonder if you're becoming a bad person because the thing that once came naturally now feels like effort. You are not becoming a bad person. You are a person who has been running on empty for so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to have a full tank. So let's talk about the first way to protect your peace. And I want you to really sit with this one because it is going to feel counterintuitive at first. And that's exactly why it matters so much. You have to start treating your emotional energy like money, not metaphorically, literally. Think about how you treat money or how you know you should treat money. You don't just hand it out to everyone who asks. You think about what you have, what you need to keep for yourself, what your actual obligations are, and what you can genuinely afford to give. You don't apologize for having a budget. You don't feel like a terrible person for saying you can't cover someone else's rent when your own is due. But with your emotional energy, you do none of that. Someone comes to you in crisis and you give and give and give until there is literally nothing left. And then you feel guilty that you ran out. You feel like you should have had more. You feel like the fact that you're depleted means you failed somehow. You didn't fail. You just never learned to budget. Here's what budgeting your emotional energy actually looks like in practice. Before you answer that call, before you agree to that conversation, before you sit down to help someone work through their chaos, you ask yourself one honest question. Do I have enough right now to give what this person needs without taking from something I need for myself? Not can I push through? Not am I a good enough person to show up right now? Not what will they think of me if I say not yet? Just do I genuinely have enough to give? If the answer is no, then saying so is not abandonment. It is the most honest, most loving thing you can do. Because here's the truth about giving from empty. And I need you to hear this not as criticism, but as a kind of rescue. When you show up for people from a place of depletion, you are not giving them your best. You are giving them the exhausted, resentful, hollow version of yourself that secretly counts the minutes until you can be alone again. You are performing care instead of actually providing it, and on some level, they feel the difference, even if they never say so. Giving from fullness is a gift. Giving from empty is a slow debt you're accumulating against your own soul. The second way to protect your peace is something that might make you slightly uncomfortable. And I want to name that discomfort directly because it matters. You have to stop being available all the time. I know. Just breathe for a second. You've probably been told your whole life, either explicitly or through the way you were treated, that being available is what makes you lovable. That showing up no matter what, answering no matter when, being there no matter how you feel, that's what good people do. That's what separates the people who really love you from the people who are just in it for what they can get. Availability became your proof of worth, your way of saying, see, I am someone worth keeping around. But what that belief actually created is a life where you never fully get to rest, where even your quiet evenings have a low hum of anxiety underneath them because someone might need you and you should be ready, where you've trained the people in your life to expect unlimited access to you. And now when you need to close the door, even for an hour, it feels like a betrayal. Here's a psychological truth that takes a while to land but changes everything once it does. Availability without limit does not create deeper love. It creates entitlement. When people know they can always reach you at any hour, in any mood, no matter what you have going on, they stop treating access to you like the precious thing it actually is. They stop being grateful. They start being demanding. And then when you finally desperately need a limit, they are confused and hurt by it because you trained them to expect otherwise. You are not a hotline. You are a human being with a nervous system and a life. What I'm suggesting is not that you become unreachable or cold. I'm suggesting you create what some therapists call structured availability. You decide intentionally and proactively when you are open and when you are not. You communicate this not as a punishment, not as a response to someone crossing a line, but as a simple truth about how you live. I'm generally available in the evenings, but I need mornings for myself. I'm happy to talk on weekends, but not during my wind-down time at night. I love you, and I'm here, and here has a shape. This is not selfish. This is architecture. This is building a life that can actually hold both you and the people you love, instead of a life that slowly collapses under the weight of everyone else's needs. Now let's talk about something that is maybe the hardest of all, and that's the difference between empathy and responsibility. This is the third way to protect your peace, and it is the one that will require the most unlearning, because the confusion between these two things is so deeply buried in empaths that it feels like truth instead of a story you were told. Empathy means you feel what other people feel. That's real. That's beautiful. That's the gift. Responsibility means it's your job to fix it. And somewhere, somehow, probably very early in your life, those two things got fused together in your mind. Feeling became doing. Sensing someone's pain became being obligated to relieve it. And now you can't feel someone else's distress without immediately scanning for what you're supposed to do about it. Do you know how exhausting that is? To feel not just your own life, but everyone else's, and then to believe that all of it is yours to solve? Here's the reframe that changes everything. You can feel someone's pain completely, you can let it move you, you can be genuinely present with it and still not be responsible for taking it away. In fact, some of the most profound help you can offer another person is simply witnessing them without rushing to fix, without offering solutions before they've finished speaking, without making their discomfort so uncomfortable for you that you do anything to make it stop, including things that are not actually helpful for them in the long run. Think about the people in your life who you've helped again and again with the same problems. The ones who call in crisis and then don't take any of the advice you spent 2 hours giving. The ones who need rescuing and then make the same choices that led to the crisis in the first place. You've noticed this pattern. You've probably felt frustrated by it and then felt guilty for feeling frustrated. But here's what the frustration is actually telling you. It's telling you that what you've been doing is not helping them grow. It's helping them stay the same because they've learned that every time things get hard, you will come in and soften the landing. Your empathy, without limits, can actually rob people of the growth that discomfort would have brought them. That's the counterintuitive thing about this. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold someone's hand while they figure it out themselves, instead of taking the problem from them entirely. Sometimes your presence is the gift, not your solutions, and that shift from fixer to witness is one of the most liberating things an empath can make. The fourth way to protect your peace is about your body, and I need you to stay with me here because this gets overlooked almost every time, and it's absolutely fundamental. Empaths tend to live in their minds and in the emotional world so completely that they lose track of their bodies entirely. You're processing feelings, tracking other people's moods, managing conversations and relationships, and all this invisible labor in your head, and your body is just sitting there being dragged along. And what happens when you never check in with your body, when you never treat it as a source of information, is that you lose one of your most powerful tools for knowing when something is wrong. Your body knows before your mind admits it. Your chest tightens around certain people before you've consciously registered that they drain you. Your stomach knots before a conversation you haven't yet acknowledged you're dreading. Your shoulders are up around your ears long before you'll let yourself think. This situation is not okay. Somatic awareness, which is just a clinical way of saying listening to your body, is one of the most research-supported tools for emotional regulation that exists. And for empaths specifically, it's like learning to read a language you were already speaking but didn't know you had words for. Here's what this looks like practically. Before you enter a room or pick up a phone or agree to a plan, take 3 seconds to notice what's happening in your body, not your thoughts about the situation. Your body. Where is their tightness? Where is their ease? What is your stomach doing? What is your jaw doing? This is not woo-woo. This is neuroscience. Your nervous system is constantly processing information and signaling to you through physical sensation. You've just been too busy managing everyone else to listen. And after difficult interactions, give your body a chance to complete what's called a stress cycle. This is a concept that comes out of research on burnout, and it explains something that a lot of empaths experience without knowing there's a name for it. When you absorb stress and then just keep moving, the stress gets stored in your body. It doesn't automatically release just because the conversation ended. Your nervous system needs a signal that the threat is over. And the most effective ways to give it that signal? Physical movement. Even just a 20-minute walk after an emotionally heavy conversation literally helps your body metabolize the stress hormones that got activated. Or deep, slow breathing. Or shaking your hands out, which sounds strange, but is actually grounded in the way animals in the wild discharge stress after a threat has passed. You have been carrying so much in your body for so long, and you deserve to put some of it down. The fifth way to protect your peace is something that I think will resonate with you in a very specific way because it touches on something empaths almost universally struggle with, and that is the difference between chosen relationships and inherited ones. Most empaths have a very hard time letting relationships evolve or change because you feel things so deeply that even a relationship that is hurting you carries so much weight and history and meaning that the idea of loosening your grip on it feels almost like grief. You stay, you accommodate, you reshape yourself again and again to fit around someone else's edges. Not because you're weak, but because your capacity for love is extraordinary. And that same capacity makes it incredibly hard to admit when something is no longer good for you. But here is what I want to offer you, not as a command, but as a question to sit with. What if protecting your peace doesn't require endings? What if what it requires is renegotiation? Most people think that relationship limits are binary. Either I let this person have full access to me, or I cut them off completely. But there is an enormous amount of space between those two things, and most of us never live in that space because we don't have a map for it. You can love someone and see them less. You can care about someone and not be their primary emotional support. You can be genuinely warm to someone without giving them unlimited access to your inner world. You can renegotiate the terms of a relationship without ending it, and in doing so, you can sometimes save both the relationship and yourself. What this requires is that you get very clear internally about what you actually need from each relationship in your life, not what you're willing to give, what you need. That question might feel strange, even selfish, because you've spent so long focused on what other people need from you that you've forgotten you have needs too. But getting clear on this is not selfish. It's the prerequisite for any relationship being genuinely mutual, genuinely sustainable, genuinely good. A relationship where only one person has needs that get met is not a relationship. It's a job you're doing for free. And the sixth way, the one I want to leave you with because it's the one that holds all the others together, is this. You have to stop treating your sensitivity as something that needs to be managed and start treating it as something that needs to be honored. Here's what I mean by that. Most empaths have spent the majority of their lives in a kind of low-grade war with themselves, trying to feel less, trying to be less affected, trying to build walls that inevitably come down, trying to be more like the people who seem to move through life without absorbing all of it. And every time you try to armor yourself against your sensitivity, you also dull the very things that make you extraordinary. Your ability to truly see people, your depth of connection, your creativity, because so much art and insight comes from people who feel things deeply. Your capacity for meaning making, which is one of the most profound human capabilities we have. What if the work isn't to feel less? What if the work is to build better containers for all that you feel? Think of it this way. Water is incredibly powerful. It carves canyons. It sustains all life. But water without a container doesn't nourish anything. It just floods. Your sensitivity is the water. What you've been missing are stronger containers. Limits are containers. Structured availability is a container. Somatic awareness is a container. Renegotiated relationships are containers. All six of the things we've talked about today are not walls to keep the world out. They are vessels that let you hold more, give more, be more without being destroyed in the process. You were never supposed to give until you were gone. You were never supposed to be the person who is always okay, always available, always the strong one, always the one who holds it together for everyone else while falling apart in private. That story was sold to you, and you bought it because it felt like love, and you wanted so badly to be someone worth loving. Here's what I need you to hear, and I need you to let it land all the way in, not just in your head, but somewhere deeper. You are already worth loving, exactly as you are, with your limits and your needs and your exhaustion and your complicated feelings and your moments of wanting to disappear for a while. None of that makes you less. All of it makes you human. And the people who are truly safe for you, the ones who deserve the extraordinary gift of your presence, those people will not love you less for having limits. They will love you better. The ones who fall away when you stop overgiving, that tells you something. Not about your worth, but about what they were actually there for. So I want to leave you with this. Not as a task, not as another thing you should be doing better, but as a quiet invitation. Tonight or tomorrow or in the next small pocket of time that belongs only to you, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Not what does everyone else need from me, but what does the most tender, most exhausted, most quietly depleted part of me need right now? And then, just this once, before you do anything for anyone else, give that to yourself. Not because you've earned it, not as a reward for a job well done, but simply because you are here. You are feeling everything. You are carrying so much, and you deserve to be cared for too. The world doesn't need you burned out and empty. It needs you exactly as you were made to be, deeply feeling, genuinely present, and rooted enough in yourself that the wind doesn't knock you over every time it blows. You're not too much. You never were. You were just pouring into places that couldn't hold you. It's time to find the ones that can.